Welcome to Balanced Life with Debbie Carlin Boyle. Conversations connecting to a healthier you. The show that gives you all the latest and greatest health and wellness information to inspire you to live a life of balance and joy. Debbie Carlin Boyle is a health and nutrition coach, personal trainer, and fitness instructor who helps her clients live in balance with everything that feeds us, in addition to the food on our plate. Please welcome your host, Debbie Carlin Boyle.
Hi, everybody. Welcome again to another edition podcast with me, your host, Debbie Carlin Boyle. This is Conversations that Connect to a Healthier You. It's Balanced Life with me. I'm so glad that you joined me today. And as you can see, I'm back at home and I am broadcasting from my house. It is, if you're watching live, then you know that Thanksgiving is in 2 days. And I was getting ready to leave and checked my navigation and saw that there was an accident along the way and I wasn't going to make it to the studio in time. So I didn't take the chance and I decided to broadcast from my house today. So if you are watching live, I'd like to wish you, my listeners, a very happy Thanksgiving. I hope you have a beautiful holiday and that, gratitude is overflowing. I also, I'm very, very appreciative of you checking in with me today. I have great health and wellness experts on my show that are doing so many things in the realm of the world of health that I'm so glad that you could be part of learning and discovering and even, sampling some of the things that we talk about and do to make your life longevity with quality is what I always say. Talk about aging young has nothing to do with, looking old or feeling old. It just has to do with quality of life. And that's what we're talking about. We actually have a conversation about that today. But before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. So I am a personal trainer, a fitness instructor, a health and a nutrition coach, and a hormone coach. So I help people kind of come together with all the things that we need in life to connect in order for us to have high quality and joy. And sometimes things that you don't really realize are creeping up on you, whether it's finances or you're dissatisfied with your career or a relationship. Those kind of things can take down your health. And I'm here to make sure they all become aligned and balanced. And lo and behold, so many other things open doors in your life. So if you'd like to get a hold of me, you can go to my website where if you pop in and if you're watching, and it just popped up on the screen, there is a free 3-day detox on there for the fall, because we're still in fall for a little while. These are great recipes, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 3 days that are going to just give you a kickstart, make you feel lighter on your feet, the whole thing. Go ahead and grab that. In the meantime, get a hold of me and let's do a free 1-hour consultation and talk about what it is that might be one of your issues. And even if it's short-term, long-term, I combine health coaching with personal training. I do that on Zoom, or I can come to you if you're local here in the Los Angeles area. So go ahead and get connected with me. And while you're at it, go to my YouTube channel, which is also Balanced Life by Debbie YouTube, and subscribe. And there you will find over 200 shows in the health and wellness realm. So again, everything from A to Z that you could think of that has to do with longevity or quality is there. So go ahead and subscribe and you'll get notified every time a new show pops up. So thank you so much for joining us today. Also, I want you to become part of today's conversation. So to do that, there's a couple of ways. One is that you can call in, and the number here is area code 323-524-2599. Again, area code 323-524-2599. If you can't call in and you're still watching live, then go ahead to my Facebook page. And on our breaks, I go ahead and I check it. I have my phone right in front of me. It's on my Facebook page, and I can see if you're asking a question or making a comment, and we can work that into the discussion today as well. If you're not watching live, don't be afraid to kick in and become part of this conversation post-show, because you could go ahead and ask a question or make a comment, and myself, and I will notify my guest today to go ahead and get a hold of you. So the idea is to keep these conversations going. And I have people that are still making comments on shows that I did 6 years ago. So there you have it. All right, we're going to get on the show because I have a question for you. So I want you to think about this. Would you like to overcome daily stress so you can live a life filled with clarity and purpose? Well, you've come to the right podcast today as I welcome my guest, Christie Nix, to the show. Christie is a professional speaker, visual artist, expert storyteller, and emotional clarity coach. She has edited and produced full-time films. She is a Reiki master, a therapeutic yoga instructor, and co-founder of the revolutionary coaching practice, rRest. That's rest spelled with 2 R's. She has partnered with 2 PhD scientists with expertise in neuroscience and molecular biology. Together, they are on a mission to help you conquer your emotions using science-backed techniques. I just said that, with proven results over the last 20 years. So, rest sessions work primarily with little traumas that have large impact on how you handle your emotions and many other things in your life. So let's take a dive into why emotions matter and how to master yours. Will you please welcome my guest, Christie Nix, to the show. There's our applause.
Hi, Debbie.
How are you?
I'm doing so good. How are you?
I'm doing good today. I'm doing good. In a little bit of a different setting than I thought I'd be talking to you in. The studio has got better sound quality and better lighting, and it's just, so I'm a little bit amiss, but overall, I'm doing really well today, and I'm excited for the holiday. Yeah. Now, you're in beautiful Hawaii.
I am. Yeah, so I'm on the island of Oahu in Kailua. I'm not sure if you've ever been there before or not, but
I have.
It's
I know
just
where Kailua is. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. I think I'm going to ask you why you landed there, and that's how we're going to get started today. Because before we talk about everything that you're into, and most notably rest, I want to hear a little bit about you. I want to hear about your background, how where you grew up, what your story is that brought you to this, to being a co-founder of rRest, and everything that led to that. So,
all right. Yeah, well, it started with a really cheap ticket to Hawaii. I was born and raised in Sheboygan, Michigan. It's a really small town. If you were to look at your hand like a mitten, it's almost at the very top, and amazing community there. But it was the middle of winter and I was just done. I was in college and I felt a little lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I thought I wanted to be a teacher, and it just didn't feel like that was the direction that I wanted to go anymore. And I always loved, talking story, as they say here in Hawaii, having conversations with people, but also documenting people's lives. I grew up with a camera in my hand and a great grandfather and a grandfather who are photographers. So on a whim, I got an email from Travel Zoo, and it said, fly from Detroit to Honolulu for $400. And it was offered for a 2-hour window. But of course, I'm so last minute and everything. I caught the email 15 minutes before the deal had expired. And I thought, what if I moved away from my hometown in the middle of winter and I lived in paradise? What would that do? And so I had no money left. I was a broke college student. So I put everything on the credit card and I walked out into the living room and I told my parents that I was moving to Hawaii, and they thought I was joking because it was just a freezing cold night. But I didn't have a plan. Luckily, I did have a friend that I knew who was a little bit younger than me in the military, and he's like, I have a couch you can crash on, but not for very long. So I hoped and prayed that I would get all my credits transferred to a different school, and they would accept me, and everything just worked out better than I could have ever expected.
Wow. So you've been there for a while now. This is,
yes,
I mean, you're not that old, but
yeah, yeah. I mean, since college.
I thought, like,
but I did
like a recent move or something, but it's not. You've been there. Wow.
I have,
so
but I met a military guy who took me off the island for about 9 years. So there was a stint of me being off island. He was just adorable and persistent. So he took me away, but I was like, we will be back. So we've been back since 2017.
Oh, okay. Well, still, that's lovely. It's so beautiful there, and it really is paradise for so many people. You know, it is such a beautiful, beautiful place to be and breathe. I mean, you can breathe the air quality. Because I live in LA, I'm so uber aware of air quality, and I'm in the health industry. You know, so it's you can't really get away from it. And Hawaii is just the sunsets. You go out, that warm tropical breeze and those sunsets, they're, to me, those are my, when, you know, I'm visualizing and meditating, I'm usually, because I know Hawaii so well, that's usually where I put myself, you know, at one of those sunsets, because that's my peaceful, happy place. And you're living in paradise. So you really are.
I think you need to come visit again. It does. Do you notice when you get off the airplane, like how you were talking about the air? I swear it like hugs you. And the whole pace is slower. Like as soon as you get off the airplane, everything is slow.
It's your body's way. I think it's nature's way, the universe's way of saying, okay, time to breathe, time to slow down, and time to really enjoy and not worry about it. Just put that stuff over here for a second, you know, and not worry about everything. Hawaii does that for me because being from LA, it is the close, well, besides Mexico, but it is one of the closest paradise places as a family within the United States that you can go, tropical places. And so our family every year went to Kauai, and we went on the Poipu side, and we always got, now they're probably Airbnbs, but then they were condo rentals for 2 weeks at a time with other families would come and get different condos. So it was like, we just did these progressive vacations with different friends and just got to know the islands, and we island hopped all the time, and just because we were there for a couple of weeks. So Hawaii's my happy place. So I envy you that you're there. So once you got there, what did you end up doing? How did you get off the couch and
I didn't even, like, I was barely on the couch. I knew I needed to have an income, number one, because Hawaii is not an inexpensive place to live. But so I needed to get my roots. You know, I had a couch for a limited amount of time. So the very next day I got a job, and I just waited for school to start immediately.
Yeah. Okay. So you got a job. So that was good. Like, were you working in a service industry, like a restaurant or
so it was like a mill. It was kind of like a mailboxes, et cetera, place. And it just threw me in. I always say it was the worst job I ever had. It was really difficult, but I learned fast, and I met some really great people who guided me to like my next things in life. I mean, just that job brought so many good people into my life. I don't know where I would be without them.
Yeah, it usually one thing leads to another, even if it's frustrating when you're in the middle of it. You know, there was a reason why you got there, because otherwise, how would you be here? You know, so to get from A to B, that makes sense. So, so what did you end up doing as a career? What did you start doing before you you discovered this rest?
It was a funny way of getting to where I am now. But originally I started, you know, I went to school for visual communication. So I was really into the film industry. I had worked on a few film sets, which is why I admire what you do with your podcast so much. It has such a nice film touch to it. So I did a lot of work in Hawaii for that. I ended up working with my mentor. He came from LA, And we did a lot of filming together and kind of broke the industry standards on wedding cinematography, if you believe it. I mean, he taught me how to tell stories, and people would say, oh my gosh, I watched this random person's wedding that I didn't even know, and I had tears rolling down my eyes. So it was always like a place that showed me that how much emotions really do matter, and waking people up and getting them connected to their emotions. But then I went to this space from film because, film is no easy task. Anyone who works in the film industry, it's grueling, to say the least. So I was getting pretty burnt out. Plus, like I said, I met my husband on the beach who was in the military. So if you know anything about the military, you're moving so many different places. I mean, we moved 10 times in 8 years, something like that.
Wow.
So having a film career while moving is very difficult. And I got the call during, I was filming this huge commercial project, and I got a call from my mom that no one ever wants to get. And it was that my dad was dying because of reasons that could have been prevented. And this whole time, Debbie, I was documenting everyone else's lives, and I was missing out on my own. I had to put the crew on hold so I could go home and say goodbye to my dad. And I remember I got to the house, and this man who used to jump out of airplanes and put fires out.
I'm sorry. I know. I understand. I get it. That's really tough. How old was he at that point?
He was 60 years old.
Yeah.
So young.
Very young.
Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's really like, hard.
Yeah. And for you with your background to think about like how this is our body that gets us through life. This is our vehicle. And my dad had this really awesome hot rod that he would change the oil in, and he'd always be cleaning it and tweaking the engine, but he never did that to himself. And it just got him such a short life.
Yeah, it's so funny because I talk to people, I always say to people when we're just randomly talking about health and wellness, and statistically this is true, people take better care of their cars and their home environment than they do of their personal environment themselves. Because if you think of your body as a garden, and what we eat is sort of planting seeds, and they could be good or bad in how they actually manifest themselves through our bodies, and they can cause havoc or they can make us feel good. So it's people don't pay attention to that because it's easier to pay attention to material things or outside things than it is to really pay attention to yourself. And, it's probably, I know you're a lot younger than me, but it was a little generational too. I think we had an initial talk that my father died at 46, completely preventable. Lifestyle played a part. I would say 98% of it was lifestyle. And, he smoked, he drank, he overate, he had cancer and didn't stop smoking, didn't stop overeating, and didn't move. He wasn't moving. He had no quality of life. He couldn't sleep because of the way he was eating and taking care of himself. He was just chipping off days until years, days, and then hours, and died way too young. And that's what turned me around and got me into health and wellness. But that was my side hustle because as you know, I got into the film industry. So when that happened, was that a kind of a wake up call for you as well?
Nutritionally, it was. I had already been a super serious gluten-free, whole food, plant-based eater, but it wasn't like I, was able to change my dad's eating habits. And I remember this moment of thinking, oh my gosh, this was all preventable. So just like your dad transformed you into this side hustle, my dad did too. I really took it seriously and became an affiliate with a global health food company. And it was like my mission to make sure that people could have more time with their family members. Like it was a very deep rooted mission. And I thought that nutrition was going to be everything. 75% of all chronic disease is preventable, right? By what we can eat, right, how we move our body. But I never for once factored in what stress does to our health overall, and how, stress can play 90% role in sickness and disease, including cancer. And that was, not only did my dad eat horribly, but he was stressed all the time. It was just this double whammy of fastest way to the ground.
he was fueling the fire, feeding the flames with, not eating well, but also being stressed, like you said, together. Just the inflammation goes over the top, which then sets you up for all kinds of diseases and all kinds of setbacks. So it's unfortunate. But, there's a part of it, again, I think we're much more aware in this country, at least, about it's not that we are being sold some really bad stuff for us, because that's, the more we buy, the more profit they make. So they're selling us things that really are very detrimental to our health. But we know better now, and anybody can educate themselves on how to feed themselves well, how to take care of themselves well. Whereas back then we didn't have the internet. We didn't have, I'm about to be 65. So, half my life was spent with no way to just Google something and try, you had to go to the library, you had to get out the encyclopedia. And even then you weren't getting what's latest and greatest information. You were only getting what was in print. You had to go buy a magazine if you wanted something, and we only had, a few television stations, network stations to get information and news from. So in a way, I'm not saying that it's no fault of their own, but the education wasn't out there. We're still being sold the same goods, in fact, more so, but and it's gotten worse because our soils have gotten depleted over the years. But we now have the tools to do better and at our fingertips, and now it's up to us. So I think your dad and my dad just, they unfortunately were products of a period of time that who knew that stress was going to make you sick, you just you figure you lived through that. That's new too. That's new. But that's what rest is. Go ahead.
Oh, no, what you nailed it on the head when you said there are things that are creeping up on you and you don't even know it. When you started this podcast today, I was like, that's it. We don't even know the stress that we're stuffing and how we're going to pay for it later. No clue.
I have friends and family at the moment that are going through something where they're going down discovery lane because they have a pain that's chronic and won't go away, which is also a sign that there's inflammation somewhere. They're doing the sort of the traditional thing of what you do, go to a doctor, figure this out, figure that out, see what it is that is going on. But not only one doctor has said, and this is a family member of mine, has said, how stressed are you? Because that causes a lot of inflammation. And, this chronic pain could, not to say, oh, it's in your head, but if you're moving, if your adrenals are shot, then chances are you're going downhill, your cortisol levels are up and you're going downhill really quickly. And finally, somebody said that to her. That wasn't me. Family members won't listen to you, especially your children. So I want to talk about rest because I can see we have a phone call waiting. Okay. Tony, is that one or two calls?
We have one.
Ooh, just one. Okay, I'm going to put them on hold until we could talk about, because that's what we're talking about today is stress and not really knowing the source of it and why rest was born to help you determine the source, because how else can you get rid of it if you don't know the root? So what's your story that got you to this?
Yeah. Well, the photo that you showed to introduce me earlier, where, I'm holding this huge bunch of kale that I grew in my fifth level apartment, and, a hike that I'm on and speaking, like, I felt like I was living the talk, and I felt like I was doing everything right. And all of a sudden I started getting these sinus infections over and over again. And it was weird because not only did I get a sinus infection, I lost my voice, and I'm talking for weeks at a time. Well, when you speak to people for your career, that doesn't really work out very well. So I started feeling like a total imposter, a fraud, like I was embarrassed to tell people I'm sick again. Like this was the day that I went in finally to get a sinus surgery done. So on the left-hand side, I looked a lot better than on the right side. That was a really rough recovery. But this moment is actually what led me into rest. After this surgery, I again tried to do everything I could. Everybody who had this sinus surgery said, oh my gosh, you're going to feel so much better after this. And I was worse. I had more sinus infections after that and more times losing my voice. And one of my mentors, Dr. Misha Ray, who is one of our co-founders, she is just my phone a friend for everything, especially when it comes to health. And instead of saying, you know, like, well, have you had enough greens and all this stuff, because she knew I was doing all those things, she said the best question she could have asked. And she said, Christie, have you ever thought this could be emotional? And it stopped me in my tracks, because even as a therapeutic yoga teacher, the emotional part just blew right over my head. And I was like, no, it didn't even dawn on me. And then she gave me the best prescription anyone could have given me. And she said, I want you to talk to Dr. Cindy Schultz. So I got onto Zoom with Dr. Cindy Schultz. I had no idea what we're doing, but when Dr. Misha Ray tells me to do something, I do it. So I get on with Dr. Cindy, just like you and I are on Zoom right now. Cindy was in her office and I was at home, and I told her all about this journey of my health and how much of a fraud I was feeling. But my biggest frustration was that I kept losing my voice over and over again. And she said to me, in a matter of a few minutes, she said, okay, let's look at this and find out what happened to you. And she said, something happened to you when you were 3 and it was really traumatic. And at first, I kind of remember leaning back and rolling my eyes and going, nothing happened to me that was traumatic when I was a child, especially because really I had a great childhood. Like, I'm one of those few blessed ones to say my childhood was amazing. And then all of a sudden it was like someone flipped this light switch on and I exploded into tears. It was like all of a sudden my subconscious allowed my conscious brain to remember. And I remember saying, oh my gosh, it was my friend. I was 3 years old and my friend from preschool, she died. And I wasn't there with her, but that day she was standing at the bus stop. She had her brand new Cabbage Patch doll in her hand and she dropped it in the street and a truck ran over her.
Oh my gosh. That's awful.
And even worse, right?
Wow.
Even worse is that my dad was a fireman and he was the first man on the scene and she died in his arms. So the trauma for me was remembering, and now I remember, not everyone remembers these moments. Okay. And like, usually when we do a rest session, it's a small experience. It's not traumatic and big like this, but it's what my body was ready to work on. And I remember my dad was bending down in his kitchen on his knees, and he was trying to explain to me that I was never going to see my friend again. And I don't know how a 3-year-old will ever understand something like that. In fact, I remember thinking, what does he mean by that? And I was so focused on the pain that he had. Like, you know, my dad's this big, strong, burly fireman. I've never seen him cry up until this point. And I see this single tear go down his cheek. And I just thought, how do I take this pain away from him? You know, I didn't have the words. And so we're going through this whole process and we're talking about the emotions that came up. And after an hour, I transformed. I felt like this weight came off of my shoulders that I never even knew I was carrying. And since that day, I've never lost my voice since. I mean, Dr. Cindy gave me my voice back, but she also gave me this space where I was like, I can help people more. I can help them beyond not just how they fuel their bodies, but now I can get to the root and get to what's stressing them out. And I was just like, you cannot be the only person in the world who knows how to do this. You have to teach me.
Wow. That's a really powerful story. Very powerful. And I have to say, and I want to take this call. Tony, I think we'll take the call before we go to break, but I did a rest session and mine was a much more minor. I don't remember because it was when I was 7 years old. I should remember. It was, you know, usually from 5 years old on, you should remember. So we did kind of work backwards and figure out kind of, and it's been weighing on me because I did it about a week ago And it's been weighing on me, trying to rack my brain to figure out. I know that's where more than one session would come in and you would be able to kind of unlock what's going on. But we do have a caller. I do want to take a caller before we take a quick break. So caller, hello, welcome to the show. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, what's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Ariel, and I'm calling from Kelowna, BC, Canada, where it is very cold and snowy right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, it's beautiful here in California, but not as beautiful in Hawaii, where Christie is. So I'm sorry that you're there in such cold weather. I am familiar with Canada. My ex-husband is Canadian, so my kids are part Canadian, so we go back a lot. Thank you for calling today. Do you have a question or a comment? I know that Christie knows you, so tell us what's going on. I was hoping it would be her calling
in. Yeah, she sure does. I'm actually a advanced rest coach as well with Rest Inc. And
okay.
I told Christie I'd call in to share what rest did for me. Because my story comes from a very medical standpoint with really profound data. And I believe Christie has some slides that she put together with some data. I don't know if you guys can pull those up or not.
We can pull them up. Are you watching? Can you see us? Or
I am. I'm on your Facebook page.
Oh, yay. Okay, good. Okay, so you're going to see them too. And we did a little rehearsal to make sure that we could bring them up. So we're good to go. So tell us what.
That's awesome. Well, so the background story for me is that I originally came across rest by pure fluke from another coach who was in the first round with Christie and everybody getting certified, and I had tried everything.
Oh, did we lose you, Ariel?
Yes,
Tony?
we did lose her, but hopefully she'll call back.
She'll call back. Oh, darn. All right, I want that story because we're telling our rest stories.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, darn.
Would it be helpful to go to the advertising?
Hi, thank you for calling Ariel Summers with Trauma to Triumph. Please leave your name.
Call her back. Okay, she's probably trying to call back again, I'm sure.
I think she's back.
What were you saying? I'm sorry, Christie. Oh, she's
back. Would
back?
it be helpful? Oh, she's back? Okay.
I'm back. Sorry, my phone got cut off because I had a phone call come in and I don't know how it got accepted. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. No worries. All of a sudden it was like silence. Where'd you go? Okay. So you started to tell us your story.
Yeah. So I came into rest because I had tried multiple modalities. I am a diagnosed bipolar who had to go off medication quite suddenly when I was 21 because I had actually died and my liver was shutting down and I couldn't stay on any of my medications. And I was just looking for a different way of having therapy to get through some of my intense emotions because I couldn't use medication. And what I found was so much more than that. Rest was the tool that changed my entire life in ways that I can't even begin to explain to you the magic behind it, because the one story I'm going to share with you actually didn't happen initially. It was in our advanced rest course that it happened, where there is a technique where they can find emotional components attached to pain, much like what Christie was talking about. And for me, one of the biggest struggles I ever had was when I died at 21, I actually lost my lung, and I'm a one-lunged asthmatic. And so during a lot of the meditations, they would always say, take a deep breath to the count of 5. And I would panic because by count 3, I was struggling to get oxygen in. And it just made me feel like such a failure. And so when this opportunity came up to be a guinea pig, if you will, to test the breath for emotional component, I volunteered immediately. Now, what you need to know is I test ever since that happened, I test my O2 saturation, which is my oxygen saturation in my blood, every day, morning and night. I also test my lung capacity every morning and night. And on average, after losing my lung, I was sitting at between 90% to 94% oxygen intake, which is not even great. It's not terrible, but it's definitely not what you want. You typically want to be above 95. And my lung capacity was sitting on a really good day about a 325 milliliter intake. And again, for somebody that's more like a 7-year-old child's lung capacity. And so I struggled to breathe on a daily basis. And then we did this session, and turns out that my breath was attached to a very deep-rooted childhood memory. And I'm not going to go into it just because it's pretty involved, but when we went through this session, going back to that memory, and I didn't remember it initially, and then all of a sudden it was like bits and pieces came to me, and then my mom confirmed it, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I felt like a weight had been lifted from me. So an hour later, I was like, wow, I feel like I can breathe so much easier. I'm just going to test just to see. For the first time since my 21st birthday, and at this time I was 37, I was able to get 100% O2 saturation, and my lung capacity increased to almost 500 milliliters.
That's fabulous.
I thought, this is crazy.
Tony, can we put up this is where we should put up your charts, right? Can we put up the charts?
Yeah,
there we go.
Great.
Okay, now we're looking at it. So it's Ariel.
Yeah.
It says Lexi, but
that's my pseudo name for the report. Yeah.
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 It's okay.
Lexi is my alter ego.
That's okay. We all have those. We all have one.
Yeah. Yes, we do.
So is this is after your first rest session, or
this was after? Yeah. So what you see right here is you see my morning and evening numbers for my saturation levels leading up to the rest session, and where that line is, where it says rest session, this is the one that we did on my breath. And what happened was I decided to test an hour afterwards, and I thought, this is crazy. It's got to be pure fluke. Like, it's all in my head. It can't be like fixing my one lung issue. And then I tested that night, and I went to still 100% oxygen saturation, as well as my lung capacity itself had increased to 625 milliliters. Wow. I have never in my life since losing my lung been able to feel like I could take a full breath. And now I'm teaching breath work, and I'm teaching people how to meditate and doing breaths up to a count of 10, where I could barely get to the count of 3 without panicking. And so for me, I share this with you because I know for a lot of different types of modalities, there's a lot of hearsay of like, well, that's how you feel and whatnot. But this is actual data. This is raw data of what this can do for somebody. And this is just my instance, and this is because I had an emotional component with it, but I haven't dropped down below those numbers since. And I'm sick right now, which is why I have the sultry voice happening. And I still am still testing today with 100% saturation and 625 as my lung capacity. So,
it's
rest,
miraculous.
Inevitable. Yeah, rest essentially has saved my life on multiple levels, and that is only one of many stories, as Christie can tell you. But I will never look back. This is everything for me. So I appreciate you letting me share that, because it means a lot to my heart. And I am so grateful to have found you and be watching here. So thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so happy that you called in. What a story. Thank you so much for sharing. I know it's, personal, and I really thank you for sharing, because you are helping a lot of people by doing that. Thank you. And I wish you the best of luck moving forward. Sounds like you got a good grip on it. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Ariel,
have a good holiday. Thank you.
You too. Yeah.
Wow, that is a powerful story. It's powerful. I can see why you wanted her to share that story. And you do have a lot of testimonials. If you go to your YouTube channel, you can hear the testimonials. I want to get into the nitty-gritty of rest in the last 10 minutes. We're going to take a quick break from one of my sponsors. We're going to come right back and just kind of get into it, how it works, how people can get involved, what's offered, and how we can get rid of these secret little traumas that we have to open up our lives. We'll be back right after this message from one of my sponsors.
Without looking at labels, do you actually know what is in the cleaning products that you use in your home? If you haven't addressed this yet, it's likely that you are spraying toxic and dangerous chemicals in your home. 3 common ingredients that you want to avoid at all costs are ammonia, fragrance, and bleach. These ingredients and chemicals can contribute to chronic respiratory problems, allergic reactions, allergies, cancer, hormonal issues, headaches, and more. So what's the solution to a healthier, clean home for your family? Teas Organics, all-purpose cleaner, and room sprays. Tea's products are formulated with the power of an essential oil blend. Her all-purpose cleaner gives you a clean surface, shower, toilet, or simply just use it to spot clean or dust, and all without harsh chemicals. And to make it even better, Tea's Organics all-purpose cleaner uses 100% organic essential oils and has a sweet yet spicy herbal aroma with hints of citrus. Imagine a fresh, inviting scent and sparkling clean home that you know is free from toxic, potentially harmful, and cancer-causing chemicals. I use these products, and I can personally attest to all of the above. And right now, enjoy a 15% discount by applying 15DEBBI, DEBI, to your order. So check out these amazing products by Tea's Organics that are healthy for you and your home.
Okay, we're back. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're here with my guest, Christie Nix, and we're talking about a technique called rRest, 2 R's, and it starts with a little r and then a big R. And if you go to there it is. It's on the screen, but you can go to rRest.com, or you can go to my Facebook page and you'll see all what's going on over there. So you get to lead you to get more information about this wonderful technique. Christie, can we talk about how it breaks down? What is the methodology behind it? What's the psychology behind it? And how, it was interesting to me because I worked with, I hope I can say her name, Tink.
Yeah.
And she was fabulous. And so she said, okay, I want you to say your name. And I want you to, and then she just randomly named another name, Charlie. And both times I felt like my inflections were completely even, but it allowed her to have insight whether or not I was going to be accepting of the process. And that's the part that eludes me a little bit, just by me saying my name and a name that isn't my name. How does she know? So talk about the way the technique breaks down and how we can find these past traumas.
Yes. Okay. So basically, we are chasing stress. That's our job. We're not Miss Cleo. I think everyone has an intuitive ability, but we are not forecasting the future. We're chasing your stress. So what rRest is, it stands for Rapid Reprogramming of Emotional Stress Technique, which means it's a whole lot of neuroscience, a whole lot. It was created by Dr. Cindy Schultz, who is a neuroscientist, and it's a little bit of magic. It's that human connection. It's being able to tap into someone else's energy. And basically what Tink was doing was a little bit of biofeedback and seeing, is there stress or not? You can say your name. You know that your name is your name. There's no stress around that. But when you say your name is Charlie, there's a sense of stress. You may not feel it, but if there's a physiological response whenever we have any stress that happens, and it may be subtle. So there may be things that we can find that are stressing you that you may not realize. But most of the time, we want to talk about what's the big thing that's stressing you out today. And what we link it back to is what happened to you. Our whole premise is making sure that you know there is nothing wrong with you. You're here, you're experiencing a human experience, and we want to be able to help you take the edge off. So what Tink did is she used biofeedback to find out where are Debbie's stressors. And so then she was able to go back and utilize basically talking to your body. Like when you think about healers and you think about everyone saying you have everything in you to be able to heal yourself, well, she's just letting your body talk to her. Your body holds the space of all the answers. So she was just following your stress to take her back to where that first moment of your stress that you're experiencing today as an adult was, but it was connected to something that happened in your childhood. So if you think about it, it's kind of like this moment when a seed was planted, that original moment in your life. I think you said you were 7 years old. And there was emotions that were tied around it. This slide actually doesn't connect to that one. I'm sorry, but I can see how you could think it would. I guess it kind of does. I can say that, that was based off, adverse childhood experiences, which for me was when I talked about my personal experience, an adverse childhood experience can be very super traumatic. But we look at like big T's and little T's, big traumas that can show up in rest sessions, but most of the time they are little T's. Little T traumas, which are most of the time something you don't remember. It's something that your body held on to, but you have so many other priorities in life. There is no reason for you to remember that small little moment that happened to you when you were 7 years old. Most of the time when people say, well, what's a little T trauma? It could be having your pacifier taken away from you, like to an adult, just take it away. To us, it seems like not big of a deal, but when it's taken away from a child, that's the way they soothe themselves. And if they're not ready, or if there's not another way to help them soothe themselves, that can be that first seed that was planted in your brain. And it's like, oh my gosh, this was a stressful experience. And now there's emotions that are tied to it. So we basically go back into this string of events and find the emotions that were connected to this original event. It's not giving you a full picture. It's giving a black and white picture for us to clear the emotion around it. It's like we're digging around in that garden for the weeds and pulling them out. And once the weeds are gone, you have a space to plant new seeds. And so when you were saying, I'm racking my brain over this experience that happened to me when I was younger, I almost want to say, you don't even have to worry about that anymore. What I want you to worry about or focus on is that beautiful new space where those weeds were taken away. Is for you to focus on now, what's that vision you have for your life so that you can move forward faster and with more ease and less blocks. Wow.
It is very powerful, very powerful. Though I can't help but sort of concentrate on, okay, so, I went back to when I was 7 and she told me it took place in a hospital setting. So when I was 7, my little sister was born. So now I'm trying, and I vaguely remember going to the hospital to meet her. So, but I don't remember anything after that. But she said something, like an argument between my parents, something, maybe it was an argument with a doctor, something happened. Something happened that set the wheels in motion for adult trauma. And going back when you're talking about the pacifier, my daughter, who does a lot of reading and I have a 2-year-old granddaughter, right? And so my daughter exclusively breastfeeds, She's the soother for my granddaughter. And she does a lot of research on later life traumas that, when you try to sleep train them and, something as traumatic as taking away a pacifier, what it could do later in life. And she's actually the one who told me, she's 2 and she's still breastfeeding to soothe, only breastfeeding, no bottles, no pacifiers. So she doesn't want to traumatize her. So she is not going to pull that away abruptly. So we're trying to think the most logical way. I keep saying I want to invent the perfect pacifier that actually replicates a woman's breast and it feels like it and gives you all that isn't just like a rubber thing that just sticks, It works for a lot of babies, but it never worked for either of mine. Well, one of mine, and it never worked for my granddaughter. So there's got to be something, because my daughter is really glued to her. And we don't want to traumatize her because we know this stuff is going to stick around and come up later. So she's not sleep training her, none of that. So yeah, believe me, I understand what we do now is going to play out later, what she does now. And again, not so much that our families knew that, that those things, it's kind of like, oh, they'll never remember, they'll forget, but they don't.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. Yep.
So with, we really only have a minute or two left, believe it or not. And there's so much more to talk about, but people can really dig into this and what you can do for them. You have different programs, different ways for people who could work with you. Can we talk about what you offer so somebody can discover for themselves what, something may be bothering them and they need to get deeper and get to the source of it. How can,
So I would say go to our website. Again, it's spelled rest with 2 R's, rREST.com. And you can go there and click on Find a Coach if you want to experience rest yourself. That way it will give you a scheduler based upon your own time, and you'll be able to schedule a session with one of our amazing coaches. And I would say when you do have a rest session, make sure you come in a space that has good Wi-Fi. You're going to be on Zoom just like Debbie and I are on today. And, don't have any distractions. Make sure that if you have young kids, somebody else is watching them. This is your time. And then make sure that evening that you have really good sleep. No blue light, just really give yourself permission to treat yourself, because it's not just during the rest session. The whole integration process happens once you begin to sleep. That rewiring of the brain is amazing. It's kind of like if you lift weights and you're burning calories during the weight lifting, but later on you're still burning the calories, right? The same thing is kind of to think about with the brain work. So just prepare yourself if you're going to have a rest session. If you have questions, hello at rest. Send us an email. You can also find us on Instagram at rest_Inc. We also have a YouTube channel that you can find us on. I mean, I don't know many other things that are, who spell rest with 2 R's. So a quick Google search should suffice. But there, if you're someone who has a helper's heart and you're interested in learning this modality, we do have events moving forward to answer questions. It's actually kind of conversation style like Debbie and I have. So I got to remember it. It's rest.com/B-A-coach. Yeah.
There you go. So is it typical that it might take a few sessions to release the trauma and to move on? That's typical. Okay.
Absolutely.
So that's, So, and I'm sure, again, there are testimonials on your YouTube channel with all kinds of different stories of how it worked for them in what way and what the process was. But it seems like it's so necessary in so many ways to open up doors for yourself that are holding you back, making you think you're not good enough, making you feel there's usually you can start traveling backwards and figure out, but this is a way that actually explodes it out, allows it to open up and come out and get out of the way, make room for you, which is so important. See, it's a modality that to me is important in what I do, so I can recommend my clients where I can do more surface things. I can talk about food and exercise all day long and good rest and hydration. But if they're holding on to a trauma, I can't really release that for them until they can get to the root of it. And you guys do that, which is really fabulous. So I want you to, we're out of time. It went very quickly, but I think I hope you talked about and got out there everything that you wanted my audience to know, because I think a lot of people haven't heard of rest before, and just getting to the basics and the nitty gritty of it kind of tells you the process. Is there anything else you want to tell us about with rest before I ask you for your final words?
Yeah, I would just be to emphasize what you just said, as it's multiple rest sessions that we recommend. Just like if you were to hire a personal trainer, you wouldn't just have one session with a personal trainer. They'd be with you on the long haul. If you were on here and you heard Ariel's story, that was not her first rest session. She could have had 50 sessions at that point. when she had her oxygen levels change and her lung capacity. So, it is also just a space of keeping your eyes on your own mat, like we say in yoga, trusting your journey and what your body is ready to release. And there's no race here. It's more about healing. So just, and to understand that everyone is fascinated by how we can go back in time and find out what happened to you. But that's the only part, is for us to get to the root so that you can go forward. I want you to focus on what you can do moving forward with that open space in your mind.
I love it. And love it. It's got properties of somatic healing to it too, where people hold on to trauma and it becomes a physical thing, where that's when the somatic healer will go in and really get to the root cause of that trauma. This is very similar, different way of going about it, really well scientifically researched. I love this, and I'm so intrigued. I think it's just fabulous, and I'm really excited that you sought me out and that we were able to make this happen today. Good timing for gratitude because it is Thanksgiving week. So I want to thank you so much for being part of the show, and I want you, can you leave us with a final word, Christie? Final word, one last. It can be a thought.
My final thought is really, it's a premise still going back to, it's not what's wrong with you, it's what happened to you. Give yourself grace. And especially as we go into the holiday season, looking at how busy holidays are, and yes, they're happy times, but they're also very stressful times. You go back and surrounded by family members who were often the reason why you are the way you are, but know that it's all, if you can focus on grace for one another and healing and forgiveness. I think of Ho'oponopono. It's a really easy Hawaiian healing blessing. If you can remember these 4 phrases: I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Just say it over and over and over again in your head. There it is. And see what happens, see what shifts.
I love that phrase. I learned that when I became a health coach. We had to study that philosophy. Thank you so much for your time, your expertise, and giving us so much vital information. I hope you guys will reach out to Christie and go to the rRest website. It's up on the screen right here on ways to get connected. And I want to thank you again, Christie, for being my guest today. And I want to wish everybody a really happy Thanksgiving out there. And remember to keep going and finding those conversations that connect to a healthier you. Bye, everybody. I'm going to see you in 3 weeks, second Tuesday of December. Thank you for joining me today. Bye.